All right, so we're about to do the My Tree ID assignment, or at least an example of it. What you will need is your iPad to take pictures on, and also your iPad, because on Schoology, in the forestry folder, there is a document called My Summer Tree ID. The inside looks like this. This is your dichotomous key that you are going to use. Now, disclaimer, it's not all inclusive. It's a pretty limited key, but it will get you to some of the more common trees. So I'm going to bring you outside and we're going to identify a tree that's outside, and I'll explain exactly what I'm looking for because there were some of you who were confused by this. So I am outside by a tree. Remember, the things that I want is I want a picture of the whole tree. I want a picture of the bark because that'll help me identify it. And last but not least, I want a picture of the leaves. And remember, needles are just modified leaves. So then what you're going to do is you are going to use your summer tree key to figure out what your tree is. So remember, whenever we use dichotomous keys, we start at the top. So 1A, leaves are broad and flat, or 1B, leaves are needles or look like scales. So if I look back up at my tree, my leaves are needles. So if my trees are needles or look like scales, I'm gonna go to number 2. Now, leaves look like scales, bark is stringy, or leaves are needles. Once again, my leaves are needles. So I'm gonna go back down. Needles are single or needles are in bunches. So if I don't know what it means by that, I can look on the right side and it's got pictures. Single, bunches. These needles look like the single ones. They're single. So then I'm gonna look down at, if they're single, I go to 4. So needles flat, bark is smooth, maybe with blisters, or needles are 4-sided and bark is scaly. So if I look at my bark, it's definitely not smooth, so it's bumpy. And then I grab the needles, and they're not flat, they're definitely more square. So if I look back at my key, if the needles are 4-sided and the bark is scaly, it is a white spruce. All right, so what you are going to do now that you have identified your tree is in Schoology, in Ag Science 8, in the forestry folder. Remember how I mentioned earlier that trees and keys, summer key, that is the dichotomous key that you are using. So that is right there in the forestry folder. But my tree ID is the assignment. So if you go in, remember yours will look a little differently. You'll have assignments and then you will have my document, but I don't have that because I just have what you guys have been working on. So if I open up this beautiful document, all the instructions are written right here. Create a new slide for each tree, choose a tree, take a picture of the whole tree, take a picture of the trunk, take a picture of its leaves/needles, then use your dichotomous key to identify it. List the steps you took to wow, that was worded poorly. List the steps you took to reach your conclusions. Examples on the next slide. So this is your example. But if I add a new slide, just kidding. Sorry, guys. I'm used to doing this on a laptop. So I'm going to add a new slide. We'll say I add it like that. I'm going to put on my 3 pictures of the whole tree, of the trunk, and of the leaves. And then I'm going to summarize my steps on how I got there. Now, I don't have to write down each one, but what I am going to say is the first one was 1B because it had needles. The second one is 2B, because again, it had needles. The third one, after 2B, it told us to go to 3. Leaves were single, so it was 3A. Then it told us to go to 4, and the needles were 4-sided, and the bark was scaly, so I'm going to say 4B. And then I'm going to write what it was. It was a white spruce. And remember, I originally said that you had to do 6 trees, but then I changed it. You only have to do 3 trees. You only have to do 3 trees. Tree 1, white spruce. So you just have to find 3 trees, use that summer tree key, and submit the assignment. That's all you have to do.